Hi guys, in this video we are going to experiment with creating texture based on a cotton ball. So this is probably one of the harder things to do, but I want you to experiment with it. Don't feel intimidated. It's just an experiment. What's the worst that could happen? Okay. Alright, so you want to have handy a couple of tools. So I like mechanical erasers. You don't have to have that, but a small eraser is helpful. You might just have a bigger eraser and that's fine. Make sure you have a wooden pencil because sometimes you need a duller lead so that you can add value. Probably want to have an eraser on it because that will be your small eraser sometimes. Something to kind of smear your value with. So I've suggested either a Q-tip or another cotton ball, or even a tissue would work just fine. Alright, so in this tissue, people tend to draw things that they know are white as just white. So you're going to have to figure out how can you use line and value to create this sense of texture. So when I was drawing this, it looked a little bit different than it does right now. In fact, I feel like I could probably recreate this a little better. But I'm going to show you what I did anyway, even though I'm not that proud of it, but that's okay because it's just an experiment. So when you're creating this, you want to look for, and I'll have a nice picture of it for you, look for areas that are darker. So I'm seeing the value is darker right here. You're going to use value and you're going to use line. The lines are really unsure. They're very crooked and squiggly, and that's all good. All right. So your line should be very light and squiggly. Look for some areas that are darker value, and then some areas that are lighter value. Typically, your lighter values, the brightest spots are going to be the areas that are closest to you, the viewer, and the areas that are further away are going to be the deepest, darkest shadows. Like that's going deep down inside there, and that's a pretty dark shadow right there, right in there. All right, notice how I've got some shadows happening here, and even look for drop shadows too, because that can help you define the edges of something, especially if it's white on white paper. So this is sort of what I have worked out so far, and again, it looked a little bit different when I was working on it. But basically, one thing that you can do, actually, is if you squint your eyes, it'll kind of summarize all of these different values, and you'll just see the brightest and the darkest to a degree. So I would start out by doing that, and then once you get like a basic shape on the page, then you can start going back in and maybe adding the darkest values. If you have a darker pencil, the darkest values are where you would use your darker pencil. So be aware of that. And you're really just going to combine line. I wish I'd have had it this way to begin with. Line and value to create that sense of texture. And we've kind of got something coming in here, so it might kind of come in. And just want to point out too that just because I show you one way to create value, that is not the only way to do it. So if Mrs. Merrill was showing you how to do it, she'd have a different approach. Mr. Bowling would have his own unique approach. So however you do this, it really is up to you. I'm going to try to get this a little closer up. The shine on the paper kind of creates the problem. But it's not too terribly bad. If you've created some sense of texture in there, call it a success. Because in order for me to get this really nice looking, I would probably spend an hour or two doing it. But you're really just going to turn your pencil on the side, create the areas of value that you see, the darkest areas, and leave the lightest ones pretty light. And then you can come back in and sort of draw with your eraser. So, and try not to let this thing move if you're working with an actual object. Try to keep it pretty steady because there's nothing more frustrating than working something out and then realizing that it has moved on you. And see, these lines right here are not really accurate at all. That's just kind of where I was playing with it. And you can do that. Like if you see something that you kind of like the way it looks and it doesn't exactly look like the object before you, just go with it, because sometimes you can, as Bob Ross likes to say, find a happy little accident that way. There's nothing wrong with that. So the object of the game here is really not to redraw this perfectly, but to find a way to combine lines and value in your own unique way to create a drawing of an object that has texture. So again, however that ends up, that's fine. Everybody's is going to look a little different, okay? So I'm going to continue working with this. Just vary your lines, turn your pencil on its side, do some really irregular lines, and if you see some stuff happening in there that you like, even if it doesn't look like the object, but it really creates an interesting texture, just run with it. See what you can do.